Good day, everyone. Today I will talk about how Spanish colonial rule shaped social classes and the government system in the Philippines. During the Spanish period, society was organized into strict classes based on ancestry and birthplace. So, social classes pyramid. Spanish society in the Philippines was divided as follows. At the top were Peninsulares, Spaniards born in Spain. They were the richest and most powerful, holding high government positions. Next is Insulares. They were Spaniards born in the Philippines and they held important posts but often faced discrimination from Peninsulares. Next is the Principalia. The Principalia was a group of local nobles and educated Filipinos. They served as local officials like the Gobernadorcillo or Cabeza de Barangay, and they were respected by the Spanish government. And next is Mestizos. Mestizos were people with mixed Filipino and either Spanish, Chinese, or other foreign ancestry. Many became merchants or minor officials. Lastly is the Indios. Indios were native Filipinos with pure Austronesian ancestry. Indios made up most of the population but were at the bottom of the social ladder. Next is the centralized colonial government. Spain created a strong centralized government in the Philippines. The highest ranking official was the Governor General. The Governor General represented the King of Spain, had the power to appoint and remove officials, enforce laws, and manage legislation for the colony. Supporting offices included Royal Audiencia, acted as an advisory group and checked the Governor General's behavior. They also sent yearly reports to Spain. Next is Residencia and Visita. They investigated and monitored official actions. Provincial and municipal levels. On the provincial level, the alcalde, mayor, ruled fully conquered provinces, while the corregidor governed harder to control areas. On the municipal level, the Gobernadorcillo was the town leader responsible for governance and collecting taxes. The Cabeza de Barangay handled the smallest units and maintained peace. Most of the positions were filled by the Principalia or trusted locals. In summary, Spanish colonial rule built strict social classes and a powerful centralized government. Understanding these structures helps us see how history shapes us even now. Thank you for listening.
During the Spanish colonial period, 1521 to 1898, modern science and technology in the Philippines began with the introduction of schools, hospitals, and research by the Spanish. This led to the rise of professions, but the development was significantly shaped by religious orders and colonial economic policies. Spanish colonization, 16th century. Spain controlled coastal and lowland areas from Luzon to Mindanao. Friars, accompanied by soldiers, nominally converted locals to Roman Catholicism. Cultural goals. The Spanish clergy aimed for full Christianization and Hispanization of Filipinos. Local religions were suppressed and old practices were not tolerated. Challenges to conversion. As a Christian lately grew, the clergy still waned, making it difficult to suppress ancient beliefs and customs. Pre-Spanish Filipino culture was not entirely destroyed. Magellan's arrival in Cebu represents Spain's first attempt to convert Filipino Roman to Catholicism. Reasons for missionary success. Number 1 is mass baptism. Baptizing large numbers of Filipinos at once facilitated conversion. 2. Reduction policies. Resettlement policies were used to gather scattered population, similar to methods used in Central and Latin America. 3. Attitude of Spanish clergy. Spanish friars learned native languages to aid conversion. 4. Adaptation of Christianity. Filipino who were mostly unismate adapted Christianity to their existing beliefs and practices.
During the Spanish period, agriculture in the Philippines became the foundation of the economy, where major export crops were tobacco, abaca, and sugarcane. These crops symbolized the Philippines' global trade power in the 19th century. Tobacco monopoly ended in 1880s. But despite this, Philippine cigars remained famous in Britain, Europe, and North America. The abaca industry grew in importance around 1850s, where this is the best material for ropes and cordage, became one of the top export products of the country. And the sugar industry became the most important export after 1850s. Sugar refining began as early as the 18th century. The port of Iloilo helped boost sugar trade. Nicolas Loney developed the sugar industry by giving credit to the landlords, bringing workers from Panay to Negros, introducing steam-driven sugar refineries, and by the late 19th century, sugar plantations owner became wealthy and influential. Before Spanish colonization, land was communal. Filipinos lived in barangays led by datos, where the social classes were maharlika, aliping namumuhay, and aliping sa gigilid. everyone had access to the fruits of the soil. For land systems, Spaniards introduced the encomienda system. Encomenderos collected tribute from natives or Indios. In return, they had to maintain peace and order, defend the land, and support missionaries. System became abusive. Tributes turned into land rent, and native lost land and became tenants or laborers. Spaniards organized villages into pueblos or towns, introduced pueblo agriculture, giving lands for community use. Spanish government issued land decrees, which are Decreto Realanga and Mora Law of 1894. These took away land from Filipino peasants. About 400,000 peasants became landless tenants. Other reasons peasants lost their land are because of 1. Outright purchase, where the Spaniards bought land cheaply from poor farmers. 2. Mortgage systems, pago de retroventa, like today's Sangla. 3. Friar lands, giving to religious orders. Farmers paid canon tax.
So, good evening, peeps, and for today's video, I will be discussing education in the Philippines during the Spanish colonization. So, without further ado, let's learn. So, education. The arrival of the Spaniards who successfully colonized the Philippines introduced the European system of education to the country. Education became a key tool for spreading Christianity, strengthening the Spanish colonization or the Spanish colony. So makikita natin, hindi lang pala talaga Christianity ang ginamit ng mga Spanish para sakupin tayo. Sinamantala din nila na yung dating mga ninuno natin is hindi mga nakapag-aral. Siyempre, para mapalawig ang kanilang influence, pinag-aral nila yung mga ninuno natin. Diba? So amazing. So kasunod is the establishment of schools. Missionaries established the first primary schools, colleges, and universities in the country. Subjects taught included religion, reading, writing, arithmetic, and music. The University of Santo Tomas became one of the oldest universities in Asia. Grabe. So, ang mga prominent figures na nakapag-graduate dito sa University of Santo Tomas, isang magkapatid na Antonio at Juan Luna, at ang ating pambansang bayani na si Dr. Jose Rizal. Like, wow. So, ang second is the role of the clergy. The priests or missionaries managed and handled the educational system from primary to tertiary level. So, itong mga missionaries pala, itong mga pari na to, hindi lang pala talaga sila taga-manage ng mga simbahan dati. Grabe, mga teacher din sila. Tingnan mo nga naman, mga power-hungry talaga. They served as teachers and administrators. Their role is to maintain discipline and promote Christian values. Promote Christian values pero ang sasama ng ugali nila. 'Di ba? Parang napaka-contradicting naman. Spanish missionaries taught Catholicism, the Latin alphabet, and the Spanish language to convert Filipinos. So, structure of formal education. Education was divided into 3 levels: the primary, the secondary, and the tertiary. The curriculum was religious and patriarchal in nature. So, hindi lang pala talaga sila aral ng aral. Mga nagdadasal din sila. Kasi nga, as the name suggests, patriarchal and religious. So, nakasenter talaga kay Lord. And schooling was free for children aged 7 to 13. Free pala siya, pero bakit madaming hindi nakapag-aral dati? Ano yun? Only the wealthy Filipinos, known as the Ilustrados, were given priority in higher education. So kung mapapansin natin, is wala talaga siyang pinagkaiba ngayon. Although free ang education, yung mga may kaya talaga is yung mga nagbibigyan ng mga magagandang privilege. Compare mo do sa mga taong normal citizens na hindi naman mayayaman. So where's the justice in that? So ang next is inequality in education. As I said nga, schools were separated for boys and girls. Common citizens had limited access to formal schooling. So yun na nga, like today's society, the rich are more privileged when it comes to education unlike the poor. So that's the one thing that our society and the society before has in common. Mas may privilege talaga yung mayayaman kaysa sa mga may hirap. So ang last is language and alphabet. The Spaniards introduced the Latin alphabet, replacing the native baybayin script. So after pala nila tayong sakupin is pinalitan talaga nila yung baybayin, which is yung ancient writing style natin mga Pilipino na ginagamit ng ating mga ninuno. Pinalitan nila yun into Latin. The Filipino language derived from the Tagalog language, which is the national language today, was even influenced by Spanish. Kaya pala, yung Tagalog words, minsan is, may mga Spanish meaning pala siya. Like yung puto, sa Tagalog is pagkain, yung tinapay. Tinapay yung coconut something. Tapos sa mga Spanish is mura. In spelling over time, mali. The Filipino vocab came from the Spanish language and was only changed in the spelling over time. Among other Filipino languages influenced by the Spaniards are Ilocano, Bicolano, Cebuanon, Hiligaynon, at Bisaya, and many other dialects existing within the country. So hindi lang pala talaga Tagalog yung influence nila. Kung hindi, Ilocano, Bicolano, Cebuanon, Hiligaynon, at Bisaya. So, yun lang po, and thank you for listening to my topic.
During the Spanish colonial period, many Filipinos relied on the traditional healers called matanda or medikio for affordable healthcare. These local experts used native herbs and remedies to treat common illnesses. Catholic friars later learned local herbal knowledge, becoming major providers of medicines in villages. They respected the skills of traditional healers called curanderos, especially for ordinary health problems, though less for spiritual matters. One important Spanish friar was Father Francisco Ignacio Alsina, a Jesuit missionary and historian. In 1668, he wrote a manuscript listing Philippine plants and herbs used for healing, a historic source still cited by researchers today. Access to modern medicine was quite limited because medical supplies depended on the yearly Manila-Acapulco galleon trade. In times of shortage, both priests and local herbalists played a crucial role as healthcare providers. Spanish-era Filipino healthcare was thus a blend of native herbal therapy and Catholic missionary medicine, helping communities make the most of their environment when medical resources were scarce.
So let's proceed in herbal plants. So the first is anonang o saltberry leaves. So ginagamit ito upang gamutin ang mga paltos o singaw sa bibig. Ang mga balat at katas ng halaman ay ginagamit din upang maibsan ng ulcer at pananakit ng tiyan. Kapag ginawang katas at pinainom sa taong nawalan ng malay, sinasabing kaya nitong ibalik ang malay dahil sa matindi nitong natural na chemical na nakapagpasigla ng sistema ng katawan. So the next is salaksak o patolang bilog o vegetable sponge. Tinatawag ito ng mga Kastila bilang cucumber of St. Gregory. Ginagamit ito bilang pampurka o alisin ng tubig o bulati sa tiyan. Ang katas ng bunga at dahon ay ginagamit din bilang antidote o lason sa kamandag ng hayop. Kapag pinakuluan, nakakatulong din ito pagtanggal ng baras sa tiyan at pagdumi. So the next is salibutbut o pandakaki. So ito ay may dalawang uri, itim at puti. Ang balat ang ngunit mas mabisa ang puti. Ang dahon ay ginagamit sa paggamot ng sugat, paso at convulsion. Sa pamamagitan ng katas ng dahon, napapatuyo agad ang sugat o ulcer sa loob lamang ng ilang oras. So the next is arogangan o China rose. Ginagamit sa pagtanggal ng pananakit ng puson o menstrual cramp at pamamaga. Ang mga pinakuluang ugat o usbong ay iniinom bilang tsaop, ipinapamasahe sa ulo kapag sinamahan ng aloe vera. Kapag hinaluan ng kalamansi, ito ay pampaputok ng namamagang bahagi ng katawan. Ang pinakuluang bulaklak naman ay ginagamit upang magpalabas ng pawis, isang paraan sa pag-alas ng lagnat at lamig. So, the next is sulasi o holy basil. Ito naman ay ginagamit sa pananakit ng tiyan, ubo, sipon at kabag. Pinapakulan ng dahon at iniinom bilang herbal tea. So, the next is marol, sampagita o sampaga. Ang ugat ng sampagita ay ginagamit bilang pampalakas ng mga kababaihang bagong panganak. Nakakatulong ito sa pagpagaling ng mga sugat mula sa panganganak. Ngunit kailangan mag-ingat dahil maaari itong maging nakakalason kapag nasobrahan. So the next is hydrotherapy o lunas gamit ang tubig. Noong panahon ng mga Espanyol, naniniwala ang mga pari at misyonaryo sa kapangyarihan ng tubig bilang panlunas. Ang mga mainit na bukal ay ginagamit sa pagpapagaling ng mga may rayuma, pananakit ng kalamnan at mga sugat. So the next is Hospital de Nuestra Señora de las Aguas Santa Des Mainit. So ito ay matatagpuan sa Los Baños, Laguna. Ito ang unang ospital na nakasentro sa hydrotherapy. Ayon kay Father Diego de Bodavilla, ang pagligo sa mainit na bukal ay nakatulong sa pagpapalabas ng lason sa pagbabuti ng daloy ng dugo. So the next is obstetrics. So nung unang panahon ng Espanyol, mataas ang bilang ng pagkamatay ng mga ina at sanggol. Dahil dito gumawa ng hakbang ang mga pari upang turuan ng mga maghilot ang mga manggagamot. Si Father Julian Bermejo ay sumulat ng Instruction of Midwives to Prevent Abortion and Date of Unbaptized Babies, isang manual para sa ligtas na panganak. Si Father Gregorio Sanz naman ay gumawa ng Sacred Embryology, unang aklat ng tumatalakay sa scientificong pag-aaral ng pagbubuntis at panganganak. So the next is general surgery. Noong ika-17 siglo, ang operasyon ay itinuturing na mapanganib dahil wala pang anesthesia o antiseptic. Ang mga sirohano noon ay mga sundalo rin na nag-aalis ng bala o nagpuputol ng sugatang bahagi ng katawan. Ayon kay Jean Malat, 1846, halos walang sirohano Pilipinas noon at madalas namamatay ang mga pasensya dahil sa infection.